What's up, everybody? How y'all doing out there? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Today's guest is drummer Mario Rubalcaba of Earthless off Rocket From The Crypt, and has formerly worked with Hot Snakes, and actually worked with him recently, which we talked about, and more throughout the years. But I caught up with Mario when Earthless came through Brooklyn touring on 2018's killer record Black Heaven, where we talked 70s record collections, stolen bikes, early drum sets, his work with the aforementioned bands, Ludwig kits, and a whole lot more. Also of note, we were talking about Captain Beyond's drummer Bobby Caldwell writing the first record, and it turns out that the real story might have been that the other musicians weren't accredited because of a contractual issue with Iron Butterfly, their other band. So, one of the many twists and turns of a killer band with no shortage of crazy stories in their history. Shout out to my sponsor, New Orleans Record Press. If you're looking to release vinyl for your project, look no further than NewOrleansRecordPress.com. It's the first independently owned and operated full-scale vinyl pressing facility in the city. You can get quotes from the real-time quote generator for the many vinyl coloring and patterning options, as well as packaging, printing, and mastering options, and all that good stuff. And that's NewOrleansRecordPress.com. Get on over there and tell them Crash Bang Boom sent you. They got a quicker turnaround than anyone else in the industry as of now, so get it while it's hot. Crash Bang Boom Podcast can be found on iTunes Podcasts, my SoundCloud and YouTube pages, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and more. Basically everywhere other than Spotify. If you like what you hear, feel free to check out any of the previous 150-plus episodes. Give me a like, a subscription, a positive rating, and or a glowing review, and or all the above. Now just check all the boxes. The support is appreciated. So here we go. Mario Rubalcaba. Get up on it. Crash, bang, boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
All right, the one and only Mario Rubalcaba. How's it going, buddy?
Going really good, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Again, for those of you who are wondering why I'm saying again, but yet you didn't see an episode that preceded this one, it's because we did do this one time before, had a great interview, and my SD card got corrupted, and I lost like 3/4 of the interview. So thanks for doing it again.
We're doing a remix. Yeah.
It was long enough ago that you probably won't remember the ridiculous questions that I asked, so I get to ask them all over again.
Lots happened since then. So
it is. You and I
cool.
both became fathers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is crazy. So this, I guess it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That was on an Earthless tour as well when I caught up with you, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
At St. Vitus as well.
St. Vitus. Yeah. I don't think I've played here with any other band.
And the other bizarre note about all of this is that I used to live in the building where we're doing this interview. I don't anymore, but I sometimes have access to the rooftop. So now we're on the rooftop of the building that I used to live in that we did the interview at previously.
Yeah, the guy at the bottom, he knew you very well. You gave me the nice handshake.
Congrats on Black Heaven, the new Earthless record.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great, man. We'll definitely have to nerd out on some 70s proto-stoner rock, because I know you collect vinyl. I like seeing the records that you have.
Cool.
I have a feeling that you probably have an even more extensive collection than I have. I'm at like 400 records these days.
Okay, yeah, I don't really know the count, but I just know the space that they take.
Which appears to be a good bet.
Yeah, it's a good wall, so yeah it drives my wife nuts. So.
I bet. You know, it's funny, I was looking at it, of the like 400-ish records that I do have, at least 2/3 of them are from the 70s, and I'd say at least 2/3 of those are probably from like 71 to maybe 76.
Okay.
I seem to have this. They say the year you were born in, you have an inclination to like music from that year.
Yeah, that's a good time period for sure.
I mean, it certainly seems to be. I would say from what I can hear, the influences in Earthless. I imagine that it is, and from what I've seen of your record collection as well.
Yeah.
How has this little run been? Y'all been out for a couple weeks?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks total. I think it's only really like 10 or 11 shows, but with a couple days off and stuff. But it's been really good. We've been hitting back some places that we initially toured on when the record came out.
Yeah.
So we're this is kind of like the last tour of, I guess you call it the album cycle for the East Midwest kind of type of territory, and a couple things in Canada as well.
So where did y'all start and where does it end?
Well, we do a thing where we fly into Chicago, because it's kind of a good hub. I used to live there, so it's a good hub where we get the rental van and all the gear is really easy to get there. Mike and Isaiah know the amp guy that gives them amps to use for free.
Sick.
And then my homie Uli from Ludwig lives there, so that's where I get the Ludwig stuff. And then I used to work there when I lived there. So
You worked at Ludwig?
no, I worked at a skateboard distributor.
Oh, that makes sense.
So a lot of times I'll get the merchandise shipped there, and
Yeah.
so it's just really easy to kind of have one day to go run some errands and pick up all the stuff, and then take off the next day and start a tour.
Nice.
So we started in Chicago and did all that stuff, and then we played in Chicago the first show, and then headed up to Detroit and into Canada, and kind of just do like a little circle. So
Awesome.
It works out really well.
Nice, dude. I was looking at this green sparkle Ludwig you're playing on this tour. That thing, it looks awesome.
Man. Yeah.
That is
yeah.
a beautiful drum set.
Thanks again, Uli.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I can only assume. Is it a 24, 13, 16? Is that what you're playing?
No, I went down just the 22.
Okay.
Yeah, 13, 16.
Gotcha. Right on. I'm excited to hear it, man. Your drum set always sounds great, and it sounds great on the Earthless records as
Thank
well.
you.
I think y'all have always done a good job, and it's a kind of recurring theme in these conversations that I have, where I confess that I'm a fan of any attempts to keep live instruments the way they really sound. If you have a good instrument, it's great to hear that, and then you see the band live and you realize this is the way this band sounds. They were able to capture it within a studio environment, and I think Earthless has definitely done that.
Oh, cool. Thank you, man.
Yeah, dude. Tell me a little bit about recording Black Heaven, man. What was that process all about?
As per usual, Earthless sort of style, we weren't really too prepared.
Really?
As a whole, I mean, we do a little bit of like writing riffs and kind of messing around with stuff, on sound checks, and when we get together and kind of just do that stuff. But we went into this record knowing that we couldn't repeat the last record that was called From the Ages.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a pretty big project. That the last record was 2 LPs and had one album was just one song.
Right.
Both sides were part of one song. So
That's
we're like,
crazy.
There's no way we can, even if we wanted to, repeat that the time that we were given.
Right.
Isaiah had moving up to the Bay Area, so we weren't able to rehearse as much as we used to.
Right.
So we kind of went into it with a different mindset of like, well, let's just get in a room and see where we're at, at this time frame. And Isaiah had already had a little bit more structured kind of riffs that he, I don't think he planned on showing them to Earthless or as Earthless songs, but I think he was just messing around with them. And, we just kind of said, oh, let's see if we can work on that, and that turned into a vocal song. And then he had another one that we turned into a vocal song. So we thought we were going to have at least 2 vocal songs on this record.
Yeah.
And that was already going to be different. And then we were doing these things where he would come down to San Diego for 3 days every couple months.
Yeah.
And we would just have these writing sort of, hangs and stuff. And before he knew it, we had 4 songs with vocals and a couple other things that were just instrumental.
Nice.
That turned into the record. Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it, man. I feel like you had said, there's already 2 vocal songs on it, and I've been a fan of Isaiah as a guitar singer, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been a fan of his voice because the first time I heard y'all do the Groundhogs cover, Cherry Red, that's him singing on it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, this guy has a great voice.
Yeah,
so
totally.
then I was like, man, I'm amazed Earthless doesn't do more songs with vocals because this guy's got a great voice.
Yeah, we've done that song for a long time.
Right.
We've always known he could sing, and he has his other band, Golden Void, which he does sing, and it's a little bit more mellower kind of compared to us. But it was just never something we talked about, that was like, we should really just change this direction.
Yeah.
Like we never even questioned it. But we've always known that he could sing.
Yeah.
We never questioned that. But then this time around, we just kind of started doing that, his initial song that turned into a vocal song, and from there it just sort of naturally happened in our usual organic kind of way of doing things.
Right.
Because we'll know pretty quick if something's not working out. We'll abandon it for a bit and try to do something else. We don't really try to force things too hard, and that's just how it's always been. So people were pretty surprised, I guess, when this record came out, that we're hardcore fans of the instrumental, long jams.
Psych jams.
So this was a little bit maybe shocking to some people, and not everyone liked it. But what can you say? We've been a band for a pretty long time, and we just kind of always done things our own way, and that's why we started the way we probably did.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really too much stuff in our city that was like us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we persevered with that for a long time, of people just kind of giving us a hard time for being what we were, and whatever. We just do what we do. So
when it came time to record the record, drums wise, what did you end up using on it? And did you use all pieces of the same kit? Was there one kit and a snare?
Yeah, I just used one kit. We went to Rancho and.
Did y'all record it out there with Dave Catchings?
Yeah.
Oh, right on. I know Dave.
Yeah, so Dave and I, we'd known each other prior from when he was in Eagles of Death Metal, and
That's
I
right.
was touring a lot with Off.
Oh,
and so we had played a bunch of shows together, and then actually Eagles and Rocket were in Australia playing shows right next to each other. So that's when we really got to know each other the most.
That studio is so cool out there, man. The vibe is so awesome out there.
I had thrown out the idea of just like trying to get out there with a band, and he had mentioned, I really would love to, be around when Earthless, was available.
Yeah.
And so we tried to make that happen for a couple years, and finally our schedules were opened up, and we were able to make that happen. So it was awesome, man. It was great to hang with him and have him just do his thing, which is he's super laid back, and
Totally.
it was just such a cool vibe, and it was cool. We were up there for maybe about a week, a little over a week.
Gotcha.
And just like living there, at the house that's up the road.
Yeah.
And he had a house kit it's a really cool kit. It's an old Gretsch kit that's like there, and it's cool. And it sounded great, and I was really tempted to just do the whole record on that, and I'm sure it would have turned out great. But I had just gotten this new Ludwig kit from Ludwig, and it was my first kit from them, so I had to see what that would turn out like and feel, because I already played it a couple times, but I hadn't recorded anything with it yet.
Yeah.
So that was a 24, 13, 16.
Nice.
3-ply mahogany.
Oh, yeah.
Legacy something,
Yeah.
So,
Sounds awesome on the record.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it turned out cool. It was fun to play. And he had no problem with it at all.
Yeah.
I figured if he would have told me if he thought if it was
Exactly.
sounding kind of funky and not fitting the style of the songs. So
Yeah.
I think I said that. I'm like, let me know if this thing does not measure up to the Gretsch, the house kit that So
Absolutely. Awesome,
So
man.
cool.
Sounds like you made the right call. So one of the conversations that we had the last time, I was telling you about my bicycle that I actually got back. So this is a crazy story I've never told on the podcast. Not a drumming story, but a ridiculous story nonetheless. I had my bike stolen outside of this building, and one of the guys that worked on it saw it in the city. He had an extra lock on him, so he locked my bike up. He told me, he messaged me on Instagram. I didn't even know I could get messages on Instagram. And I'm like,
Right.
What is this? And it's a picture of my bike. And he's like, hey, this is the guy from the bike shop. I locked your bike up. You want me to get you the key? I'm like, dude, yeah. Oh, my God, yeah. So I get the key. I buy some bolt cutters. I go down, cut that guy's lock off, unlock his lock, and take my bike and get my bike back.
Oh, cool.
Now, that's not where the story ends. That is amazing. And I want to hear, you also have a crazy story about someone stealing your bike. So after that, I ended up cracking the fork. The handlebars came completely out of the stem. Then I cracked the frame.
Yeah.
So then I got another bike that I was just like, this is an interim bike, and when I can find a similar bike, I'll get it and I'll build one.
Uh-huh.
I didn't like my interim bike, so I'm on a stretch of a boulevard, 2 lanes, no bike lane. I wasn't wearing a helmet. I'm in traffic, and I tied my hoodie up on the handlebars.
Yeah.
It falls into the front tire, throws me over the bike.
Oh.
I ended up fracturing my arm. Thankfully, I didn't crack my head or get run over by a car and die. So, needless to say, fuck that bike. I got rid of that bike. I built another bike since then.
Yeah, that thing was bad luck.
Dude, seriously. So, like, I got one bike back, cracked that bike, got a shit bike that I didn't like, almost died on it, sold that, and now I got another bike that's similar to the one that got stolen that I got back.
Uh-huh.
It's a kind of an insane, convoluted story, but
That's a much worse experience than mine, man.
you know what? Yours sounded pretty torturous. I think about it quite frequently. But tell the listeners your story about how old were you when you got your bike stolen?
I was 11, and at the time, I was living with my cousins. My mom and I were living with my cousins. My mom was going through like some marital issues or whatever, and so I was living with my cousins, and it was kind of in a little bit of the rougher neighborhood of Vista where I grew up in. And yeah, I had worked my ass off to get, as much money for this BMX bike. And I was so into BMX. And
You and me both.
yeah, and fuck, man, I had this bike, I got it, and I think I paid like $400 for it, which was a shitload of dough for me back then.
Right.
And still probably is now.
Yeah.
But and it wasn't that special of a bike. I think it was a Cycle Pro.
Okay.
But it was like an upper BMX line that they had.
Right.
And the guy had made some updates, you know, put some good wheels on it and some good grips and brakes and stuff. So it really rode good for what it was. And I probably had it for about maybe a little less than a year. And after school, we had made this really fucking killer BMX track just at the corner of our street. And everyone, you know, we had our little crew that we do our thing and after school and just be there for hours, man.
Yeah.
Just being kids, jumping, tabletops and whatever, you know. No one had, it was like a shared parking kind of a little garage thing. Nothing was really closed or whatever. So I just did my thing every day. I put my bike at the bottom of the stairs and I went up to go get like a Coke or something and came back down and I see this little cello kid, I think, riding away on it. And it's kind of like, huh! like, hey man, like, but I knew once I saw who it was, I was just like, fuck, there's nothing I can do about this.
That sucks.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do about this because this kid was in my grade, but he was backed by one of the families of, you know, kids that you don't mess with, you know.
Right.
And he had a bunch of older brothers and stuff like that. I'm just like, I just have to like watch this like go by, you know. And then like weeks later, I would see like my number plate like on someone else's bike.
Oh.
And then like even I had these Amy grips, you know, these like really cool mustard yellow Amy grips that were like the handle. They like you had to, you know, it was kind of a prideful thing to own those back then.
Yeah.
They were on someone else's bike, and then I was just like, man. So I was so bummed for like a couple of months, and then kind of rethought about what I was gonna do. And in that time, though, I had an uncle that was he was a little older than I was, and he used to skate. So he had a couple leftover boards from his era of skating. So me and my cousin that I live with, we would just start kind of messing around, just riding skateboards on the street in the driveway. Just to kill the time since I didn't have a bike anymore. And before you know it, I just ended up asking the parents to get a new skateboard. So
cheaper than the damn BMX bike.
Much cheaper, yeah. It was less than $100 back then.
Right.
So yeah, here we go. Yeah, that was never looked back from then.
And then you end up that changes your life. Then you end up with a notorious skate crew and skating and doing the whole thing.
Yeah. It's
well, that ended up being a blessing in disguise somehow. That you were tortured by this gangster cholo that you couldn't get your own bike back, and you saw him riding around on it.
Yep. Yeah. And the first setup was a Santa Cruz Red Dot that came with a tracker, 6 tracks, and Sims B52 wheels, and they were like a 50-50 blend. They would do like half black, half white.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a pretty tight setup.
Nice, dude.
So.
I love hearing people talk about bikes. I was so obsessed with both bikes and skateboarding as well, and rocking out and listening to music on my cassette Walkman and shit. And then, I ended up playing drums. So I guess at which point you go through this whole skate thing, at which point did you start playing drums, and why the drums in the first place?
Oh, I'd started playing drums way before that.
You had?
Yeah, I'd started playing drums when I was like 4.
What?
Damn,
dude.
Well, apparently my mom says it was just like a life, like crawling and dragging pots and pans out of the cupboards and shit. And she had made a drum for me, and I beat the shit out of that. And then I got a Mickey Mouse Disney kids drum kit when I was 4. I beat the crap out of that. And then I got a real kit, like a Japanese Ludwig kind of a offshoot thing.
Yeah.
And I was 5 years old when I got that.
Wow.
And it was like a Ringo colored kind of black oyster pearl type of thing, but it was no brand. The name or logo would usually be. It was just like a deck of cards. Right. And it was sick looking though, because it was like a whole deck of cards like all flashed out.
Nice.
And that was the logo.
Whoa.
I'm like, what brand was this? But yeah, I had that kit and I played for a few years. And then when the BMX thing came into play, I needed to fix those drums up at that time. And I was BMXing so much that I just kind of put the drums away.
Uh-huh.
And then when I moved in with my family and cousins and stuff like that, I couldn't play in that apartment. So that's when I started playing guitar and then listening to more records, and then skateboarding came after the bike got stolen.
Right.
And then it kind of came full circle again, though, because when it was maybe a year or two into skateboarding, there was a local shop that had opened up, and one of the older guys that worked at the shop and skated, he was really, really good. He had exposed me to a lot of punk rock music.
Oh, cool.
He had mentioned, I think in somewhere in there, like he would wanted to start a band, and he's like, "Oh, we need to find a drummer." I said I used to play. He was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then him and I had struck up more of a friendship, in the next coming year. I was 13, and then I think we just went for it one day on a borrowed kit. I didn't even have a kit anymore.
Right.
And we just put together some stuff, and we started playing again, and that's when I started playing again, when I was 13. Yeah.
What a bizarre series of cyclic events.
Totally.
And how this all kind of ties into something else and then ultimately to another thing. And
for sure. And like ever since then, I mean, skateboarding and drums have been my life.
It's wild. When you're on tour, do you skate?
Not anymore.
Okay.
I mean, I won't not step on a skateboard, but
Right.
I don't bring my board, and I don't try to go to skate parks like I used to.
Yeah. I know a skate band out of here in Brooklyn. Those dudes all skate when they do tours and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah,
especially
a
as a
little too old
drummer,
for
man.
that.
One slip up on your right foot, and you can't play your bass drum, or
Yeah.
a finger, then you can't hold a stick. It's like,
I've had some close calls, but at the end of the day, when I'm home, it's all open game. I'll skate my butt off whenever I have time to. But on tour, I have a responsibility to my bandmates to be responsible and for the music.
Yeah.
It was one thing that Ian Mackaye, though, opened my eyes up when I was playing with a band called Blackheart Procession.
Uh-huh.
We were in Europe doing a tour, and we both. He was in Fugazi at the time,
mm-hmm.
and we both rented equipment from a music distributor called Concurrent. And I had taken my board that just had some cruiser wheels on it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even anything. It was just to like go skate the rough streets. It was a really smooth rider.
Yeah.
And I showed it to Ian, and I was just like, "Hey, like, do you still ride it all?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Yep, I love it, but I can't step foot on it. I can't even step foot on this board." He's like, "I got 3 other faces looking at me, counting on me to,
Right.
Be there, show up every night."
And crowds.
Right.
And
So
people
he's
showing
like,
up.
"Man, if I hit a fucking rock and I fall down and I break my wrist," he's like, "Show's over." It's like,
Yeah.
I'll be fucked.
Yeah.
He's like, "Everyone be fucked." He's
Yeah.
like, "There's a small percentage of that shit fucking happening, but it can happen."
Yes.
So from there on, I was just like, duh. I was like, oh, I couldn't have had a better person tell me that, though,
Absolutely. Of all, you're like, all right, fucking
Yeah.
A, I respect you, Ian Mackaye.
Yeah. But even after that, I still disobeyed Ian's totally proper mindset of doing things right. But then I figured it out,
Yeah.
So
It's interesting that the San Diego thing with you, because one of the bands there's a lineage in you playing with Rocket from the Crypt and doing the Hot Snakes thing. Drive Like Jehu is one of those bands that a lot of people reference as an influence.
Okay, yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. Uh-huh.
Were you able to you were able to see them back in the day when they were doing their thing?
Yeah.
What was
Saw
your
them a few
impression
times. Oh,
of them when you saw them?
They were great, man. They were just so, it's just such a simple term.
High
but
energy.
So electric.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to see them maybe 4 or 5 times, and my old band, Clickatat Italy, played with them one time.
Nice.
So we were, around at the same, doing a lot of the same things. We were a little bit younger, but yeah, I was lucky to see them a good handful of times, and yeah, it was a good time.
One of the other bands that you've been involved in, a band that I'm a big fan of in Hot Snakes, and especially the Audit in Progress record that you played on.
Yeah.
Hot Snakes put out a new record, and you play on some of the tracks, and that came out the same day that the Earthless record did.
Yeah.
So a twofer on one day.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
yeah.
How was it reuniting with them and doing that?
With Hot Snakes?
Yeah.
Oh, it was cool. It was great. It was very brief and quick, in the respect that, like, I had done some touring before the record actually came out with them, but then the recording was so last minute with me getting involved because I think it was just a fluke that I was in town.
Oh.
And then we were like, had less than a week to get together and do this thing. I think we rehearsed 3 days and came up with 4 songs, or the bones of 4 songs, 3 songs actually. And then in the studio we did 1 song, pretty much learned it and recorded it that day. So yeah, I
Gotcha.
did 4 songs total.
Right.
But 3 of them turned up on the records.
Damn, dude. Flying by the seat of your pants in the studio, that kind of shit stresses me out, man. I'm like, oh my God, are we about to completely train wreck this thing? And I start getting in my head way too much about shit like that, man.
Yeah, luckily the place that we did some of the drum tracks at were really, it's kind of like a second home.
Awesome.
So it was cool.
So a question, and this will tie back to some of the other questions that I have about some of the other bands that you've been in, but the guitarist of Earthless, was he connected to the band Drunk Horse from the Bay Area at some point?
Yeah. He had, when Earthless formed, he was living up there at the time as well, up in Oakland, and he was playing with them at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
He was playing guitar with them.
Because their record "Speaking in Tongues" in adult situations, maybe, or something. Adult situations. I love those records.
Yeah, I don't know if he's on the recordings.
Okay. I was wondering if he was.
Which I think he might have moved back down by then, but he just did some touring with them.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the listeners, if you're at all a fan of like Thin Lizzy, the Allman Brothers, kind of thrown in a drunken blender with some, I don't even know what, but Drunk Horse is such a cool band. I love those records. Did you ever get a chance to see them live by any chance?
Oh yeah, we played with them a few times.
Really?
Yeah, they were great. Yeah, and we just actually did a festival where they reunited, and it was in Portland for a festival called Stump Fest.
I thought I saw they were playing it.
Yeah.
Did you see them?
Yeah, totally.
How were they?
They were amazing.
Really?
So it's like a revved up Allman Brothers meets like Captain Beyond, a lot of like southern kind of rock boogie, just kick ass.
I thought for sure they were from the South when I heard them.
Yeah,
I really did.
But they're from the north of California.
Mixing it up. But then again, I grew up swearing that Creedence Clearwater Revival was clearly from the South.
Yeah, from the Bayou, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, where I grew up, down in Louisiana. I just assumed. Whoops. So it looks like, hey, man, California can pull some shit off every now and again.
True, yeah.
It's crazy. Who are the members that were in Drive Like Jehu that ultimately connect to Hot Snakes?
It's just the two guitar players, so John and Rick.
Thought so.
Yeah.
So then Hot Snakes becomes a thing. Like I mentioned earlier, you played the drums on Audit in Progress, my favorite Hot Snakes record.
Yeah.
What was it like hooking up with the Hot Snakes guys?
It was cool. It was another thing that kind of came about, like out of the blue, where Jason had joined another band. Hot Snakes wasn't really doing much before that. They would do maybe a tour once a year, but it got to the point where I think some of the guys wanted to do it more full-time-ish, I guess.
Okay.
But at that point, Jason had just joined this band on a major label, so it was just bad timing for him, and he either had to quit or I'm not sure how they worked it out, but he wasn't in Hot Snakes anymore.
Right.
And I was asked if I wanted to try it out, and sure, yeah, it was cool. And we never really talked about the Audit in Progress record being intentionally different from the other two. We just got in a room and played and came up with songs, and that's what happened, So it was cool. It totally was its own thing. And when it came out, I mean, people were a little bit shocked at it was a pretty big departure from Suicide Invoice and Automatic, Midnight. So I don't think everyone got it at first, and maybe not everyone liked it. There was a couple songs that were really, really pop, and those ones definitely got, sucked up and liked them, and people liked them more.
I mean, the opening track, Brain Trust, that's a ripper. That song's so badass.
Yeah, it took a little while for that kind of stuff to grow on people, but we noticed when the band got back together that record had definitely taken, a few steps up in people's taste of appreciation, they liked it more. So it was good. Felt good to have people know it a little bit more, in comparison. But it was a good record. It was cool. I'm pretty proud of that record.
Fuck yeah, as you should be, man. And I think yet another cycle here is that you grow up playing this punk rock stuff, and you're getting hip to that. And then in Hot Snakes, I would say that there's most certainly some punk rock, high energy, fury kind of bombast.
Yeah, for sure.
That. So you were definitely employing that. What a really cool thing. At some point, you start doing Rocket From The Crypt. Is that where does Off start, and did Off precede Rocket From The Crypt, or did you start Rocket From The Crypt?
Rocket From The Crypt preceded everything.
Everything, okay.
When I lived in Chicago, I would visit back home to San Diego periodically, and that's when I got wind that they were looking for a drummer, Rocket was.
Right.
And Adam had left. And I had started talking with some of those guys in Rocket about maybe, like, hey, like maybe when I visit home again, we can get together and see if something happens or whatever.
Right.
But that happened. I played some songs with them and rehearsed with them, and it totally worked really, really awesome, really fast. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the basis of me moving back to San Diego, like pretty soon after that. So I was in Rocket from 2001. That's when it kind of started that. And then Hot Snakes I joined in like 2003, 2004.
Okay.
But you know what? Some of those early Rocket tours were the roots of how Off would eventually get together. We had played some shows with Burning Brides, which is Dimitri, the guitar player in Off. So that's when I first met him.
Oh, okay.
And that's also when I first met Keith. He came to a Rocket show we played in L.A.
Yeah.
And so that's when I met both of those guys in that same tour. Fast forward, 8-9 years later, 2009 or something like that, and Keith had gave one of the promoters his number to give to me about, hey, like just give me a call.
Wow.
And I gave Keith a call, and he mentioned that he had this idea for a new band. He didn't mention it was with Dimitri at first, but so I just said, yeah, sure, man, I'm down to check it out.
Yeah.
And then I hear it was with Dimitri, and I was just like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I know him. Like, we had been friends for a while before that. And then Steven McDonald was in the mix. He was the only one I didn't know and I'd never met, but I've known of his history. you know. So that's when that started. We got into a room, and that worked out amazingly the first practice.
Wow.
And then that's already 10 years ago.
Wow, dude, that's nuts.
Yeah.
When I think of intense frontmen and just someone who appears to be an intense person, I would imagine Keith Morris. He seems like.
Oh yeah, he's a maniac.
He's a maniac. Did you learn any? Did he impart any wisdom? Any words of wisdom to you at any point that you could recall?
I don't know about maybe like in that sense, but he's just been around, and he just
I imagine
has
he's got
so many
great stories.
so many stories and cool bands you've seen and stuff like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
With Off, you those are minute and a half, 2-minute songs, and then here you are playing a 30-minute song with Earthless.
Yeah.
In those instances, do you have to pace yourself differently?
I don't look at it like that. It's just there's times in Earthless music where even though the music's going on, for me I'm taking a break, whereas Off it's just full on intensity.
Right.
And I got to take advantage of that in between song break when the banter's going on, and it's a different mentality, but in playing, but Earthless is easier in a weird way. It's kind of backwards, but
Yeah.
It all ends up being just music, good music, fun stuff.
Now with Earthless, I love I can always hear the Hendrix influence guitar-wise.
Of course, yeah.
My son's name is Hendrix. I'm obviously a fan.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
What are some of the influences that y'all have thrown around, or any particular bands that y'all particularly love? If y'all are on tour, y'all are like jamming some shit in the van, and you're like, this is...
Earthless?
For Earthless, yeah.
Oh, man, it's a pretty wide variety for sure, but I mean, classics, of course, Hendrix, Cream, Zeppelin... I mean, Sabbath, The Who is a big one.
Yeah.
ZZ Top is huge. But then there's a ton of obscure stuff that we're all into. Mike and I are really, really big record nerds. And Isaiah always has a pretty odd bag of stuff that he's into that just always surprises me when I'm just like, oh, wow, like, wouldn't think he'd be into that.
Right.
But, yeah, we really just love all kinds of things. You know, it's the thing with Earthless is that I really appreciate is that we all have an appreciation for punk and kind of odd stuff that maybe the typical stoner heavy band might not dig as much, We're all big fans of a band called Chrome. We love the DC hardcore band called Void. And whenever we play that stuff to people that are kind of in our same realm of things, they don't really seem to get it as much. And we get that, and we utilize that into what we do in some shape or form. And also with jazz. I mean... Right. People a lot of times say, oh, you guys jam so hard and stuff. And it's like, yeah, we use the term jam to get together and play music, but improvising is something that we do more so. And jamming is more, in my opinion, just like mindless tinkering and not really being as focused, whereas improvising, you're creating on the spot. Right. We you know, on this tour we've been doing that a little bit more, where we're just kind of going on and doing our thing for like half an hour, 45 minutes.
Wow.
It'll never happen like that again, you know.
Right, exactly.
So it's unrepeatable.
Right.
But
In the spirit of jazz.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. It's really rewarding when you hit it right. You know, you don't always hit it. You're gonna fail, you know, but fuck it, you got to go for it.
I hear you, man. It's interesting. When I mentioned Drunk Horse earlier, so one of my friends in New York about 12 years ago gave me a mixed CD that he had made called Heavy 70s.
Uh-huh.
And on that was like Atomic Rooster, Lucifer's Friend. I would later find out about Leafhound, which coincidentally, the last time we hung out, you were wearing a Leafhound shirt, which I was loving.
Yeah.
And then Captain Beyond as well. So I hadn't heard like Captain Beyond, Lucifer's Friend, Atomic Rooster. Even like I wasn't familiar with the first Rush record, which is also, you know, Neil Peart isn't on that. And that I consider that like a kind of a proto-stoner, like Working Man is a fucking stoner rock song.
Totally. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But what are some of your favorite bands of that ilk, that era, style? There's so many.
Yeah, there's so many, but recent ones I've been really kind of digging into, either Again, Sir Lord Baltimore.
Oh, that shit's really cool.
Highway Robbery. Let's see. There's a really good compilation from a label called Numero Group.
Numero Group?
Yeah, they're from Chicago, but it's got a really rare single from a band called Stone Axe.
Okay.
And they were in a band called Josephus.
Okay,
before.
yeah.
They had a record called Dead Man.
Wow.
But a couple of the members, a singer and guitar player, they did a short-lived project called Stone Axe, which is like two amazingly heavy songs.
Wow.
So I've been digging in that lately. Iron Claw, a band called Iron Claw.
Oh, yeah.
I just bought a really kick-ass record today, a reissue of a band called Electric Funeral. That it's really raw and 70s stuff. So I'm looking forward to digging that.
Yeah.
But
well, I tell you what, whenever I go back and visit that Captain Beyond, and this is yet another bizarre instance where I was able to start an interview and I just never got to finish it.
Yeah.
But when Captain Beyond played here at St. Vitus, I interviewed Bobby Caldwell, the drummer.
Oh wow!
And
that's awesome.
But we were having a great conversation, and he had to break to do some stuff, and then he got sidetracked, and then I was never able to finish that fucking interview.
Oh,
but
crazy,
it was great.
Man.
It was awesome talking to him, man.
Yeah.
He was telling me about meeting Joe Morello when he was a kid and all this stuff, and just all
jazz
this
guy, right?
Yeah. We didn't really get too much into what he studied and how he got to where he was at, but I mean, the dude had chops, and he was a fucking great drummer.
He's one of my favorites for sure.
Dude, that first Captain Beyond record is so incredible.
Yeah.
The guitar playing is outrageous as well. You want to talk about?
He wrote that record though. Yeah, he put that whole first record together.
Rhino or Bobby Caldwell?
Bobby Caldwell.
Oh, Bobby Caldwell did.
Yeah. He put that
Gotcha.
whole first record together apparently.
Wow. It is such a killer record. When they played here, they had 4 guitarists on stage.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was
man.
insane. It was a giant
How was he
band.
playing? Was he playing okay still?
Dude, I thought he sounded great.
Oh, awesome.
It's one of those things like Ian Paice. You know, you see Ian Paice, and the form is so embedded in him that he still has chops.
Right.
I feel like Bobby is kind of the same way.
Right.
You know,
that's
and,
great to
and
hear,
he
man.
reminds me of Ian Paice. I always thought that there was in particular, there's a particular fill that I hear them play, and Mitch Mitchell did a similar one as well.
Right. I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And but all 3 of them like played the shit out of it. All 3 of those drummers that I just mentioned that play that lick, also some of my favorite drummers.
Oh, great, man.
Yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
So I mentioned Off obviously earlier. You recorded some songs recently for a potential new record.
Yeah. We laid some drum tracks down to tape, and about 25 songs, and it's pretty different for Off.
Okay.
They're still a little bit shorter in nature, but a little bit longer actually. Crazier drumming going on.
Cool.
And stuff. So should be exciting to see what the finished product turns into.
Is there a projected date to release it?
Not at this moment. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little bit overdue, but it'll get done when it's right.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Hopefully I'll be coming through New York again soon.
Yeah, man.
Right on.
Yeah.
Mario, it was good to catch up with you, man. It looks like we actually got this one in its entirety. Knock on wood. We just happen to be on a wooden table. No more dysfunctioning bullshit SD cards. But great talking with you. Kick ass tonight, man, and always good to see you.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, man. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Mario, for hanging for the second time. We actually got this one out. Knocking on wood seems to have worked. That and having a fully functioning SD card. It's also always great to nerd out in 70s rock, vinyl, drums, bikes, skateboards, and more. Some good times indeed. So thanks again, Mario. We'll catch you on the Flippy Floppy every Monday. Tune in. Crash Bang Boom.